Since the mid-20th century, whispers have lingered about a carnival that vanished in the 1930s. Whenever a blood moon climbs the sky, a strange music seeps across the abandoned fields, discordant, lilting, impossible to place. The curious who pass through the gate will find lights glowing, rides turning, and performers smiling with hollow mirth. But every game demands its price, and the final prize is to become an eternal act in the carnival of shadows. When done. Alex Carter was no stranger to strange rumors. As a freelance journalist, he had chased stories of haunted houses, lake monsters, even the lingering curses of forgotten towns. Yet, the tale that drew him into the Appalachian hills unsettled him more than the rest. A carnival that vanished in the 1930s, reappearing only beneath the glow of a blood moon. He did not come alone. Beside him was Maggie Holt, a photographer who had followed him through many hunts for the bizarre. Together they drove the worn car along winding mountain roads, the horizon bleeding red, as if the sky itself were leaking thin, diluted blood. The field where the carnival was said to rise stretched out in desolate silence, nothing but brittle grass the color of ash. No banners, no stalls, no trace of celebration, only a silence so heavy it seemed to swallow their breath. Alex checked his watch. The lunar eclipse was minutes away from its darkest point. They waited. A sudden wind swept the plain, lifting dust into twisting columns. From the emptiness came a sound, low, warped, unmistakably brass, as though a trumpet were groaning from deep underground. Red light washed across the field, and from nowhere a gate materialized, its frame a curve of rusted black iron. Above it hung a sign that shimmered unnaturally, "Black Carnival." Alex held his breath. Maggie raised her camera, but through the lens there was nothing solid, only shapes writhing like shadows that refused to be captured, as though the place rejected being recorded. Beyond the gate, faint lights flickered. A wooden carousel creaked to life, horses moving in slow circles. Children's laughter echoed faintly, though the field was empty of children. The air was thick with sweetness, like spun sugar left too long in the heat, clashing with the sharp tang of something metallic and rotten. Alex felt his pulse hammer in his throat. This was no folk tale. Something real had risen from the void before them. He turned to Maggie. No words passed, only a single grim nod. The gate creaked open, and their first step inside the Black Carnival rang out like a binding vow, one from which no one ever turned back. The air inside the carnival was heavy with sweetness, but the sweetness choked like smoke, burnt sugar laced with the bite of rust. Along the midway, booths glowed with sickly yellow bulbs, colors bright at first glance yet collapsing on closer inspection into warped wood and peeling paint. From somewhere unseen, a brass band wheezed out broken notes, the melody lurching between low groans and sharp shrieks, never finding rhythm. Out of the haze, a towering man appeared, cloaked in black and white stripes. His face was hidden beneath a cracked mask, only his eyes exposed, burning like furnace coals. When he spoke, his voice rattled through the air as if funneled through a broken loudspeaker. "Welcome, new guests. Come play with us. Every game carries its own reward." Alex and Maggie exchanged a wary glance. Curiosity gnawed at Alex, pulling him toward the ring toss booth. Rows of glass bottles waited, their throats impossibly narrow. He tossed the first ring, and against all odds, it landed. A stuffed bear, threadbare and sagging, was pressed into his hand. But as Alex gripped the prize, pain tore through his finger. His pinky nail snapped free, blood welling. The bear absorbed it instantly, its fabric staining dark red before drying, the color sinking into its seams like a permanent scar. Maggie recoiled, but the masked man only let out a jagged laugh. "Every prize must be paid for. You have already agreed." Defiant, Maggie stepped to the strength tester. She swung the mallet down, and the gauge's needle shot to the top. Lights burst in a sudden flare. Her prize was a porcelain doll, already fractured with hairline cracks. The moment she lifted it, her palm split open, as though the skin had been peeled away in a single strip. Blood smeared across the doll's porcelain face, seeping into its lips until they gleamed crimson. Alex yanked her back, his heart hammering. He understood now. Every carnival game here was fed by flesh and blood. The prizes were no trinkets at all, but parasites feeding on what the players lost. From deeper within the carnival, the music surged, drums and horns, urgent, commanding them forward. The masked man spread his arms like a grotesque master of ceremonies, voice booming with glee. This is only the beginning. The true performance awaits. Ahead, a rotting wooden door creaked open, revealing a funhouse of mirrors. Thousands of distorted reflections stared back, bending and twisting like bodies drowned in red water. The blood moon's glow poured through the glass, every reflection rippling as though alive. A chill crawled up Alex's spine. The carnival was tightening its grip, and with every step, they had already wagered their own flesh. Neem, eyes. The mirror tent sealed shut behind Alex and Maggie, as if an unseen hand had slammed the door from outside. Dim crimson light seeped through the heavy canvas, scattering into endless shards across the mirrors. With every step, their reflections multiplied, dozens, then hundreds, stretching long, twisting grotesquely into shapes that no longer resembled human forms. The carnival's music faded into the distance, replaced by a soft undercurrent, like whispers bleeding from the glass itself. Alex halted, pulse racing. In the mirror's warped reflection, his face was no longer whole, one side splintered, his eyes black and glossy like glass on the verge of shattering. Maggie pressed onward, but her footsteps dragged across something sharp. Alex looked down and froze. The ground was no longer carpeted with dust and cloth, but covered in jagged fragments of glass, each shard streaked with dried blood. Maggie trembled, clutching the porcelain doll from before. The doll stirred in her hands, its cracked eyes fluttering open as if waking from a dream. Suddenly, a thunder of applause erupted. Both of them spun around. At the far end of the mirrored hall, a stage revealed itself, lit by a pallid glow. Dozens of spectators sat in silence. Their bodies were rigid, skin pale, eyes locked wide open. At first, they seemed like wax figures, but as Alex drew closer, dread curdled in his stomach. They were real. Human.pie. Their souls had been hollowed out, leaving only husks. A few still breathed shallowly, lips twitching as if to beg for help, though no sound escaped. Maggie stumbled back, colliding with a mirror. The surface rippled, and another figure appeared, her reflection but hollow-eyed, its mouth slashed open in a grin that reached ear to ear. The reflection thrust its hand through the glass, clawing her skin. Purple welts spread across her arm, as though her very soul was being torn away. Maggie screamed, but the sound warped and dissolved, devoured by the maze. Alex dragged her free, only to find the stage empty. The silent audience had vanished, leaving behind rows of rotting wooden seats, stained with dark patches of blood. The air thickened, pressing down with the weight of countless, unseen eyes. A laugh boomed from above, the laugh of the masked master of ceremonies. The audience is ready. The next act is yours. At once, the mirrors blazed with light, then cracked in unison. From the fractures burst blackened limbs, jointed and sharp, like the broken pieces of marionettes clawing their way out. The maze shuddered, splinters raining down, the shriek of breaking glass colliding with the chaos of carnival music. Alex fought wildly, blood smearing the mirrors as his hands were torn open. Wherever his blood touched, the shards ignited, glowing like fire. Maggie swung the porcelain doll at the creature's grasping arms, each impact unleashing a shrill, childlike wail that pierced the air. They pushed forward, desperation fueling their escape, until at last a narrow gap appeared, a passage out. They hurled themselves through it, tumbling onto damp, cold earth. Behind them, the mirror tent convulsed, then collapsed inward, vanishing into a void of nothingness. But the laughter remained. The MC's voice coiled through the air like prophecy, echoing inside their skulls. No one leaves before the carnival is finished. Yeah. They stumbled out of the mirror tent, breath ragged, their clothes smeared with blood and glass dust. Before them spread a vast square at the heart of the carnival, bathed in the crimson blaze of the blood moon. At its center lay a wide circle, etched in black ash and dried blood, encircling a tall wooden post, weathered, splintered, unmistakably an execution stake. Figures in black cloaks began to emerge, one by one. Each wore a cracked jester mask, teeth rotting and yellow beneath the fractured grins. They gathered slowly, their movements deliberate, swaying in rhythm, as though locked in some grotesque dance. The carnival's music shifted into a funereal pounding, drums dull and hollow, like the heartbeat of the damned. Alex and Maggie crouched behind a decayed booth, watching. A young man was bound to the post, a filthy rag stuffed between his teeth. Blood trickled from his hands, raw flesh torn where the skin had been stripped away. His face was ashen, eyes wide with the last desperate plea of a man who already knew there would be no rescue. One of the cloaked figures stepped forward, voice booming, drawn out, reverberating like a sermon from beneath the earth. The blood moon rises. The pact is renewed. Blood for soul. Soul for endless delight. The crowd echoed the words in unison, a chant, ancient and steady, vibrating through the bones. Alex felt his veins turn cold. This was no game. This was ritual, older than memory, fed by sacrifice. The carnival lived, and it feasted on the living. The bound man thrashed as another masked figure approached. The weapon it carried was not a blade, not an axe, but a rod glowing with a sickly neon red, pulsing like a vein of fire. The rod pierced his chest. Light burst from the wound, not the light of blood, but the tearing brilliance of a soul being ripped free. His body collapsed, hollowed, nothing more than a husk. The crowd erupted in cheers, laughter clanging and brittle as iron scraping stone. Maggie shook, tears shimmering in her eyes. Alex gripped her hand, whispering hoarsely, "We have to escape before it's us." But even as he spoke, dread cut through him. The gate they had entered by was gone. Around them stretched only rows of booths, endless, a labyrinth with no way out. From above, the MG's voice descended, sharp and merciless, each word a decree. The newcomers have played their first game. The pact has claimed them. The next act is their sacrifice. As one, the cloaked congregation turned, dozens of cracked masks locking onto the shadows where Alex and Maggie hid. The sound of footsteps followed, slow and deliberate, pounding like the carnival's own heart. Alex drew in a sharp breath, clutching the blood-stained teddy bear, the cursed prize that had already tasted him. Maggie held the porcelain doll, its glassy eyes glittering as if infused with the soul it had devoured. They both knew now. The games had carried them too far. They were no longer spectators. Under the blood moon, they were the chosen offering. Now! Ow! The drums pounded like a colossal heart, their rhythm echoing across the carnival. The masked crowd closed in, hollow eyes fixed upon Alex and Maggie. At the center of the square, the execution post rose again, waiting for its next sacrifice. Alex gripped Maggie's trembling hand, feeling her fear vibrate through his own bones. He knew there was no escape. The gate was gone, the carnival sealed tight around them, like the jaws of a vast predator. The prizes they carried now pulsed with menace, the blood-stained teddy bear, the porcelain doll with burning eyes. They whispered in voices only he and Maggie could hear, urging them toward the circle of sacrifice. The masked mech emerged, towering, his shadow engulfing the square. His voice thundered, drawn out and merciless. The audience waits. The carnival demands a new act, and you, Alex, you will light the stage. Two cloaked figures lunged, seizing Alex in arms cold as iron. He fought, thrashing wildly, but their grip was unbreakable. Maggie screamed, rushing forward, only to be hurled aside. The porcelain doll shattered in her hands, and from its broken shell poured the shrill cries of children, echoing into the darkness. They bound Alex to the post. The blood moon blazed down, painting his skin in a suffocating red glow. The MC lifted the glowing rod, burning like a coal ripped from hell, and pressed it to Alex's chest. Agony ripped through him, but Alex did not scream. His gaze locked on Maggie, despair and resolve mingling in his eyes. "Run!" he roared, his voice folding into the thunder of drums. Light erupted. Blood and soul tore free, unraveling into ribbons of crimson that spiraled through the air. His body convulsed, splitting open, bones snapping, flesh melting into molten wax that dripped and hardened into something new. When the glow faded, Alex was gone. In his place stood a towering carnival effigy, a grotesque figure with hollow eyes and a smile carved impossibly wide. The crowd erupted, applause crashing like thunder, laughter jagged and metallic. The new performer bowed low, a grotesque parody of gratitude, as though Alex himself were welcoming the audience to his debut. Maggie collapsed to her knees, tears flooding her face. But the carnival allowed her no time to grieve. The torches guttered out, plunging the square into darkness. When light returned, the crowd was gone. The post had vanished. She was alone, stranded in the middle of a barren, windswept field. At her feet lay the teddy bear, its stitches soaked dark with Alex's blood. Its button eyes glowed faintly, like embers refusing to die. And Maggie understood. Alex had not escaped. He had been claimed, forever bound to the carnival. Far away, faint music stirred once more, Calliope notes curling through the night air. A promise that when the blood moon returned, the black carnival would open its gates again, waiting for the next curious soul to wander inside. O nei,